evening and welcome to another edition of our Government at Work program, a program brought to you by the CCM-led Nevis Island Administration and hosted by yours truly, Keith Scarborough. This program, I remind, is broadcast live on VON Radio every Thursday evening from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Then we broadcast on Nevis Television on Sunday evenings from 8:30 p.m. It can also be seen on Facebook and YouTube shortly thereafter. This program is designed to inform and educate citizens, residents, as well as visitors to our shows of the many positive developments that are taking place here on the island of Nevis. It's another wonderful Thursday evening here in Nevis, and it's a time when many persons look forward to a night filled with information as it pertains to the continued good governance of the CCM-led Nevis Island Administration. I, for one, look forward each week to go deep into discussions with ministers of government, the permanent secretaries, the advisors, the department heads, as well as top officials from the various statutory corporations to ensure that our listeners and viewers are given as much truthful information as possible, especially in times like these when some has obviously set out to mislead. We also make every effort to keep the discussions as frank and as honest as possible so that you, my listeners and viewers, could get a true reflection of what's happening here in the land that we all call home. We shall take a short break, and when we return, I shall introduce my guests for this evening program to you. So stay log on to the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, 860 AM.
So rise, St. Thomas is right, St. James is put together and build your land. St. Paul's together with St. John's. This land is enough for all to share. No reason to leave and go nowhere. Foreigners can come here from America and England. There is something mighty sweet about my land. And if the foreigners who live here can insist that it's here they're from, then I swear I'll never leave my native land.
Folks, I am pleased to have as my guest this evening Premier the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley. Honorable, good evening and welcome once again to our Government at Work program.
Good evening, Mr. Scarborough. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. Always I take every opportunity where I'm invited to interact with the people of Nevis, and this program is informative. It's designed to bring accurate information, and I thank you for the work that you've been doing, and certainly, as I've always said, when you need me, call on me, and certainly I try to be here. I've had a long day today. In fact, I'm just leaving a ceremony where we celebrated 5 unsung heroes, one from each of the parishes, and I say congratulations to them all. But this is a government which is people-centered, as you know. We are always finding ways to honor, to respect, to uplift, to promote, and to ensure that our people are at the center of all that we do. We hear a lot about sustainability, we hear a lot about development, but the people of Nevis must always be at the epicenter of what we do. That's why we say our people matter most. And we say that because we mean it. It is the ethos that is mainstream throughout all that we do in government. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for being our guest this evening. We really appreciate it. And by the way, I must say to you that I am now convinced that you are a philosopher, like me. For those who may be wondering what a philosopher is, it is a person who faces difficulty with cool and calm composure. I say that because I listened to your program last evening, and I am convinced that you have a special kind of faith and a very high tolerance for certain behaviors. I'll just put it that way. we have quite a bit of ground to cover this evening, yes. And I know my listeners and viewers are anxiously waiting to hear from you, so let's get straight into it.
Sure.
Honorable, in just over a week time, we will be celebrating the 42nd anniversary of our independence. Several events has already been held to mark the occasion, but one event caught my attention a couple of weeks ago, so I wanted to draw your attention to it. It was an event held in St. Kitts as part of their celebration. That event was called Conversations. The topic was reflections and the way forward. What role should our global family play in building St. Kitts and Nevis? If you were asked that question, what would be your response?
I think my position on that has always been clear. I've been one of the strongest advocates for Nevisians in the diaspora. I have said that there's no difference between Nevisians at home and Nevisians in the diaspora. What I mean by that is that all are Nevisians, all belong, and all have a right to make a contribution. I have strongly advocated for Nevisians at abroad, those in Canada, the United States, those in the Virgin Islands, St. Martin, wherever they may be, that they get engaged, they get involved. And I've gone so far, I made a speech in Canada recently at the Ansar reunion, and I said to Canadians of Nevisian descent, some born in Nevis, it's time to come home. It's time to come home. As we see the outer world, Mr. Scarborough, getting more hostile to immigrants, getting more hostile to people of color, I keep reminding our people that we have a beautiful island here, a beautiful country, and we need people. I see some some hysteria about people coming into Nevis and how many people Nevis can support. And I remind people all the time that Nevis is 36 square miles. St. Kitts is 68 square miles. Between the two of us, therefore, we are 104 square miles. Nevis has 13,500 people. St. Kitts has about 38,000 people. Between us, therefore, we have just over 50,000 people on 104 square miles. Bermuda has 22 square miles with 65,000 people on Bermuda. So Bermuda is 1/5 the size of St. Kitts and Nevis and has more people than us. You need people. You know, we have a saying in Nevis that two fets can't happen the same night. One must bust.
Yeah, of course.
You need people, businesses need consumers, government need taxpayers. You know, you need people. And I just want Nevisians to get over this fear about too many people. And with 13,500 people on 36 square miles of the island, it is clear that we need development and we need people. And who better to come than our own people and descendants of our own people? And that was my invitation to Bermudans. When I went to Bermuda, I was shocked to hear that 60% of them trace their roots to St. Kitts Nevis. I said, come home. Come home. Come and buy a piece of land or come to your family land. Build something. Even if you're not ready to retire, build something and have an Airbnb or something of the nature, but contribute and come. So I have been a strong advocate, Mr. Scarborough, for engagement with the diaspora. And I'll go further, and I'm going to get a little political here, because a proposal was brought to the cabinet when I was at the federal level to introduce legislative changes to ban the overseas voters.
Yes.
Team Unity came with that, and I stood up in that cabinet and tell them I am prepared on principle to resign. And some said to me, oh, because CCM has overseas voters. NRP has more overseas voters than CCM.
I know that.
Right? But I was telling them, you cannot take away people's right. They're born here. They have a connection here. You can't tell a man that he can't have a say in the country of his birth, while at the same time, Commonwealth nationals after 1 year can vote here.
Yep.
And I took that very strong. I'm very passionate about it. At the end of the day, elections will come and let the people speak. Some were concerned about who has advantage and who doesn't have advantage. I say, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the principle of it.
True.
And we call on our diaspora to come home for music festival, for carnival, for Culturama, for Mango Fest. But at times, some of our people have an attitude, and I have heard even some who have retired and come home said to me that they feel sometimes that they're not welcome because Nevisians tell them, oh, you come back here, think you know better than us. No, let us embrace our people. This and that, Mr. Scarborough, forgive me. I recall a time, and some of us may want to forget or pretend to forget. But I remember a time when it was those boxes and barrels from those same people that fed us.
True.
And that kept Nevis going. Christmas time, my siblings and I used to sit on the veranda in Brownhill and count the barrels going into Brownhill. People who are in the Virgin Islands and things sent up to help us on the boats, people in Canada. Right? I remember one time we had a barrel, and when I opened the barrel, man, all kind of sweater, turtleneck sweater, and you know, I see me in the hot sun, I wear turtleneck sweater. Because that was what came.
Yes.
You know? And when something came, You hand a little something over to your neighbor, some sardines, some Vienna sausage, some whatever. And that's how we used to live. Nevisians must remember where we come from.
True.
We must remember where we come from. And I find that there's a sentiment now in some of us that we don't care about these things. We must remember. And I will always pay homage, brother, to those overseas. They have an integral role to play in our development.
True. Now, speaking of independence, the talk is getting louder regarding possible changes or amendments to our constitution. Some are even calling for wholesale changes. And you and I know that's easier said than done. But let me ask you this. Have you ever received any requests from the federal government to have both administrations meet to discuss any possible changes to the constitution?
When you say calls are being made, I want to know to whom and where. Because I will tell you, I have been in politics now for almost 2 decades. I've been in the national parliament since 2007. And I have never heard anything except lip service paid to change in the constitution. And I believe that part of that, and I'm trying to be fair, part of that is just the extreme difficulty. You know, there are provisions in the constitution which, in my humble opinion, are almost impossible to change.
Yes.
There's some provisions which require, for example, a referendum on St. Kitts and a separate referendum on Nevis. And those referenda have to have a 2/3 majority.
Right.
You know how hard it is in St. Kitts and Nevis to get 2/3 of the voters agreeing on a matter? It is very difficult. You have provisions there which require referenda. You have provisions which require supermajority in the parliament. You have a number of provisions which make it exceedingly difficult. And so for me, we have heard political rhetoric. A lot of politicians, especially those on St. Kitts, they rail against the constitution, but when they get into office, they don't even change a comma. I believe it is instructive that in 42 years, not even a comma has ever been changed in our constitution.
Sure.
That speaks for itself.
Of course.
So for me, I'm dealing with issues as they are, on the ground, real issues impacting our people day to day, and I leave some of those other issues for others to contend with. I am dealing with bread and butter issues for my people.
I hear you, my brother, I hear you. I ask that question because I am getting the impression that some persons in St. Kitts believe that it is the CCM-led Nevis Island administration that is trying to avoid those discussions. My good friend Sam Condon, for example, and Mr. McMahon keep calling for Clause 113 to be removed from the Constitution. I have no idea which Nevisian they think would agree to such a change, much less to get 67% of Nevisians to agree to that. But I would like to hear your thoughts on such a call.
Well, that for me is nonsense. I mean, it's instructive who you say is making the call because it's people from St. Kitts. And I keep saying to people from St. Kitts, while they're brothers and sisters, I have been really alarmed at the lack of understanding of Nevis and Nevis politics. It's either they don't care or they simply don't understand. Because sometimes the pronouncements that they make over there, I mean, even we have this discussion about the sustainable zones and things of that nature. And I hear some of the commentary coming from St. Kitts, and I'm scratching my head because I say, I wonder if they know that there's a place called the Southeast Peninsula. I wonder if people understand that the Southeast Peninsula is an SSZ, except it has not been designated as such under the law.
True.
In fact, when we had the debate, Dr. Denzel Douglas, who stood up and heavily supported this bill, he said that Lavalley is a candidate for an SSZ. But you hear them, some of these commentators throwing these darts and Nevis this, and I tell them, I said, listen, you all just don't understand. You don't get it. And I have a saying, you know. I remember when all the chat about politics and thing, I tell them, listen to me. St. Paul's Nevis is a different St. Paul's to St. Paul's St. Kitts.
True.
I don't think that people understand the philosophy in that statement. Since you say we are philosophers. St. Paul's Nevis is a different St. Paul's to St. Paul's St. Kitts. And until the fellas in St. Kitts really, in my view, come to Nevis, spend a little time here among the people and understand the people, they will continue to say foolishness on radio.
True.
Because they have no grasp. They have no grasp, and that is why, as a Nevisian, I'm very careful in terms of where I wade myself into in terms of the day-to-day St. Kitts issues. Because how you going to tell a man in Molyneux what to do when you don't know where Molyneux is?
True.
And the problem some of these fellas have, Nevis for them, even though a part of the country, they have no real knowledge of Nevis.
That is true.
They have no real knowledge of Nevisians. They don't know what day-to-day inspires Nevisians. And that has been the real concern that I've had over the years. So I put those kinds of comments in what I would call the do not respond bundle, and you leave them there, because those are throwaway comments.
Great. Now, Honorable, the Dr. Drew-led administration and the CCM-led administration over the past 3 years has been working closely together on several fronts, namely the development of the geothermal energy, upgrades to the Vance Dumley International Airport, and the sustainable development goals, just to name a few. Prime Minister Drew a few months ago signed off on several loans from the Affexim Bank. Since the relationship between the two administrations is working so well, let me ask you this. Will any of those loans be going towards the further development of the Nevis?
Not particularly, no. Okay. You have identified the areas where we have cooperated.
Right.
I must say, as I've said publicly, that Prime Minister Drew has, in his engagements with me, been a man of his word. I am not suggesting that everything he does I agree with, because that is not the case. And I'm fairly certain that he doesn't agree with everything that I say or I aspire to. But if he has said to me, I will do X, he has done X. And we could not have advanced the geothermal project to the point where it is now, were it not for his active engagement. The CDB funds, he would have had to sign off. The funds from Saudi Arabia, he would have had to sign off. Because even though they're engaging with the NIA, ultimately they want the sovereign government, that is the national government, to sign off. And Prime Minister Drew has been very accommodating in that regard. The Vance Dumley International Airport, we have a $7.5 million loan from the National Bank. Again, he facilitated that facility for us. So I say all that to say that I believe that the relationship, administration to administration, has been working. There are areas that we need to strengthen. But I feel that in the main, what I like about the relationship is, if I call Prime Minister Drew and I say, Prime Minister Drew, this is a situation. If he tells me he's going to do something, he does it. And frankly, in politics, that's all I ask for people to be genuine and sincere in what they do. And at the end of the day, my job is to ensure that the people of Nevis are in the best possible position to move forward. And the development of Nevis is my goal and my objective, and I believe my duty as the Premier of this island.
Thank you. As a follow-up to that question, let me ask you this. Does the CCM-led Nevis Island administration, with the support of the federal government, of course, have any intention of approaching the Sept Bank for any loans for the further development of Nevis?
Not at this point. The truth be told, that we are going into significant debt on the airport. We have 3 facilities. We have a facility from Mr. Patrick Drahi, who has come on board to assist. We have a facility from the government of Taiwan, and we have a facility from National Bank. Those facilities will obviously be a debt burden on us. We feel it's an important initiative to expand and develop our airport and to give us the necessary infrastructure for us to move forward in terms of our economy. I believe, and I've been saying for some time, that Nevis needs to take another big step in terms of our economic development. And we feel that the airport, which represents for us transportation links, represents for us the opportunity to open up, commercial flights from the U.S. mainland, our main market, but also the private jet traffic. Recently we had a delegation from St. Bart's that came to see us, and one of the discussions that I initiated with them in St. Bart's, that they've now continued with us in Nevis, is when that airport is finished, can it act as a hub for St. Bart's? These are the types of things I think we are trying to achieve, and I believe that investing in infrastructure, developing infrastructure, that then paves the way for additional investment and expansion of the local economy. The Nevis that I'm trying to create, Mr. Scarborough, is a Nevis that has opportunity for all. A Nevis where when our young people graduate school, whether it's high school, sixth form, or university, they do not have to go abroad for opportunity. There's opportunity here. A Nevis where our people currently in the diaspora because we know many of us went to the diaspora because the economic situation in Nevis was not the best.
True.
I want now to change that. I want them to come home. But you can't ask people to come home unless you have the level of development, the economic expansion that will accommodate them and allow them to use their skills to better develop and better push forward this little island of ours. So I'm very ambitious. I believe that this is the time now. My first term as Premier was marred by COVID. I had 2 years with the country shut down, and then another year, and in a 5-year term that did considerable damage to our ability to move forward. This is now my second term, and I am pushing hard. I'm 2.5 years in. I have another 2.5 years or so left. I'm pushing hard. We need to make some big things happen on this island so that our people will have opportunity in the land of their birth.
Agreed. Now, speaking of the Afrexim Bank, Honorable, the Prime Minister recently proposed that there be free travel between the continent of Africa and St. Kitts and Nevis. Some parts of Africa have already free travel to St. Kitts and Nevis, but do you see the whole continent of Africa having free travel with St. Kitts and Nevis, and should this become a reality, what sort of impact do you see such an agreement having on the economic development of St. Kitts and Nevis?
I think it should have long been a reality. In fact, again, for those who have paid attention to me and my career as foreign minister, I promoted very heavily. In fact, I will say to you, Mr. Scarborough, my heart has been glad that Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados, now Prime Minister Drew, I see Prime Minister Gaston Brown, they have all got now on that bandwagon, so to speak. Mayor has led, but the others are on that bandwagon. We need closer relationships with the South. All of our relationships hitherto have been us looking north. We're looking to Canada, we're looking to America, we're looking to the UK and Europe. Nothing is wrong with that. And I'm not suggesting that we abandon those relationships. But the world is changing. And we need new relationships with new countries. And I said, you know, life is funny sometimes. I coined a phrase, diplomacy matters. I was the foreign minister who initiated and concluded diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia. Just a few short years later, Saudi Arabia is making $20 million available to us for geothermal. I want our people to understand that. Because where we could not get money, our traditional partners like to offer what they call technical support. They will send you an expert. They will send you people to advise you. But they're not sending you any cash. And you need cash to push forward some of these projects. I can't pay a driller with an advisor.
Sure.
A driller wants money. And so non-traditional partners like Saudi Arabia, in the height of the pandemic, I would remind us, it is India that sent us vaccines.
True.
India, when the rest of the world was trying to hoard vaccines, Prime Minister Modi reached out and a plane landed in St. Kitts, a jet landed in St. Kitts with our first batch of vaccines. The first vaccine I took was the AstraZeneca.
Sure.
From India. Afterwards, I engaged with the White House and we were able to get some of the other vaccines, Pfizer, and some of the others through that relationship with America. But the initial stages, when times were dark and frankly the world was unsure, people were concerned that the poorer countries would not get access to vaccines. It was India that came to our rescue, a non-traditional partner. So I have been arguing, man, listen, let's do all we can to maintain relationships with our partners in the north. But we must look south. True. And let's face it, the first time I went to Africa, I went to Senegal. No, I went to Morocco. But my second trip, I went to Senegal. And in Senegal, I signed diplomatic relations with Senegal. And I will tell you, the foreign minister in Senegal, I went to a reception and he hugged me. And when he hugged me, he says, my brother, welcome home. And I said, but not even in Nevis anybody ever tell me that. And I said to him, like, what do you mean? And he said, but you are of Africa. He said the Caribbean people are of the 6th region of Africa. Africa has 5 regions, east, west, north, south, and central. The 6th region is the diaspora. So they see us as part of them. And it is for us now to embrace Every country around the world, every superpower, China, Russia, America, countries in Europe, all of them are rushing into Africa.
I realize that.
Trying to get access to Africa's resources. We who are of Africa have been reluctant. So I have been an advocate, and I will tell you, my wife told me that somebody called the house to talk to me, and I wasn't available. She spoke to them, and the person said that the reason they were calling is that a large group of Nevisians have just come back from a tour of Africa, where they went to several countries.
Yes.
And they said that some of them had American passports and were having difficulty. They had to pay for visa. But the St. Kitts Nevis persons said welcome. They had no problems. And the person called to thank me because the person said, when I was foreign minister and I kept announcing visa free, visa free, visa free with Zambia, visa free with Ghana, visa free with Kenya, and I kept going down the line, there were many divisions who said, well, you don't want to go them place there.
I remember that.
Well, you don't get visa free to America. Nobody want to go them place there. Nevisians are now traveling to Africa.
Yes.
And when they present that St. Kitts Nevis passport, stamp, welcome. That, I think, is the vision that is now being realized.
Yes.
And so I 100% advocate we should not have any visa barriers between us and the motherland, because that's like keeping cousins apart.
True.
You shouldn't need permission to visit your family. Right? And so Africans, I think, should be free to come here. I am very proud to see that this new government, I am sorry to say, they slowed down the visa waiver arrangements significantly, because I was averaging as foreign minister sometimes 4 and 5 per year. They have slowed it down significantly. I think this new government in 3 years has added Zimbabwe, and I see recently they've added Nigeria. But every country counts, and every country as well adds to the power of the St. Kitts Nevis passport in terms of the rankings internationally. I took it, I think, down to number as high as number 21 in the world. Right? I don't know where it stands now.
Okay.
But all of these things are important. So I support Prime Minister Drew, because that is a vision that I myself have long held. Closer relations with Africa. And you can't have relations with people unless you can move, you can visit. And the more obstacles you put up, the worse it is.
Okay. Great. Now, I want to focus your attention now on the development of our tourism industry here on the island of Nevis. From all reports, things are looking very positive for citizens and residents of Nevis in the short term, the medium term, but especially in the long term.
Yes.
I saw an article recently in the Observer with the headline, Nevis Tourism Surges with Record Revenue. When I saw that, I said, wow. So enlighten our listeners and viewers about this very positive development.
Tourism has been on an upward trend. What we realized after COVID, there was what we call pent-up consumption. People were at home, they couldn't travel, and I think after COVID, people decided, listen, I'm going to travel. Because we've seen a lot of people, even what we traditionally would call the off-season, which in the usual, when I became Minister of Tourism way back in 2013, by April, May, things start to shut down in terms of just quiet. We have seen a robust June, for example, a robust July. In fact, I will tell you that our earnings just from the 3%, remember we had increased the tourism development levy from 2% to 3%, so that additional 1% became effective the 1st of June.
Yes.
And you get paid, because the hotels and restaurants collected, they paid the month later.
Right.
So for August, which we would have collected, July, I'm sorry, which we collected in August, I believe that we were, the numbers I don't have in front of me, but we were significantly ahead of where we were last year. And that tells you that there's still a high level of activity in what is traditional off-season. I was very pleased when I look at the numbers to report to Nevis that where we are in terms of that particular tax, and that tax is an excellent indicator because it shows you what is happening in the tourism industry.
Right.
And where we are in that tax as of August, Mr. Scarborough, was equivalent to the entire year last year. Bear in mind that we still have September, October, November, and December. Right? So we still have 4 months, but the August indication was that we were already on par with the entire year last year. So if these trends continue, I think we're going to have a record-breaking year this year. And I say credit to all of our hotels. The Four Seasons continues to carry the weight, but the other smaller hotels as well. Our restaurant sector, as you know, restaurant sector in Nevis is so exciting. You want to go out in Nevis right now, you don't even know where to go because there's so many options that are available. And we have actively, sometimes I hear the chatter about, oh, nothing is happening in Nevis. And I said, but how could people say these things? If you just take a stroll down Pinnis Beach right now, you don't know where to drink, you don't know where to eat. If you start to count down there, the number of establishments, many of them new, that you have, and then you look around the island. And so that sector, the restaurant sector, which supports the hotel sector and the guest house and villa sector, it has really been contributing. And I think it can do more because many are still falling outside the tax net. So we need everybody on board and doing their part. But I do believe that the island has shown remarkable resilience, and from where we were to where we now are, a significant comeback in terms of our tourism. And we are hopeful, very hopeful, that God will spare us the ravages of any storms and we can continue to build and develop. And so I thank all the stakeholders, the taxi drivers, the people who work at the hotels, the people who work in the bars and restaurants. Tourism, as we like to say, is everybody's business. And everybody makes a dollar from it. Some fellas may say, well, I don't have nothing to do with tourism, I'm a fisherman. But the hotel's buying your fish, the restaurant's buying your fish.
Exactly.
The lobsters, the conchs, the man who's farming, his pumpkin, his watermelon. All of that end up in the food chain that feeds us and that drives this industry. So I say kudos to the stakeholders. I want to commend the Nevis Tourism Authority. I want to commend the Ministry of Tourism. I believe that they've been doing an excellent job, and we will continue in that vein. I really have my eyes set on even higher heights, not only for tourism, but for the other aspects of the Nevisian economy.
Great. Sounds good. I want to look now, Honorable, at some of the other positives that are happening with our tourism industry. The film industry is the first one that comes to mind. I understand that initiative is beginning to bear fruit, especially from a marketing perspective. Speak to us a little about the long-term benefits of this bold initiative.
King, that again is demonstrative of a government with vision. In the dark depths of COVID-19, we actually came up with this idea to have a film industry. And I know a lot of people laughed at us. We started with a partnership with MSR Media, which partnership worked very well in terms of getting us going. MSR Media was able to train up a number of our locals, and for the first time, Nevisians saw movies being made in Nevis in a concerted way. I would remind Nevisians that MSR Media made 9 films over the course of the COVID period. 9. In Nevis and St. Kitts, but vast majority, 90+% of it was in Nevis. Fast forward, we had a bit of a lull, because after MSR departed, we then started to make outreach. Reach out to experts, reach out to people in the industry. And one of the things that we decided to do was to go into the House and pass legislation to create a film commission. We did that, and then we appointed a film commissioner who now becomes a one-stop shop for film. People were skeptical. I understand that, because one thing about the Nevisian people, they are skeptical until they see it. But I can tell you and say to the people of Nevis that effort in terms of film has now started to bear spectacular fruit. Just this year, 2025, we have had a film done by Juliet Jeffers, who's Nevisian, an actress who has appeared in a number of well-known episodes and series, including Law and Order in the United States. She is related to Alexis Jeffers. In fact, he was the one who brought her to meet me. Juliet loves Nevis. Juliet has come back to teach acting and has had a number of acting classes in NIPAC. Juliet just came back and did a film called Pangirl, which I'm told is now going to be premiered in Nevis in the next few weeks. Then we had a gentleman from Four Seasons who also did a film, and that film focused on the churches of Nevis, tracing the history of the churches. That film actually ended up being one of the films that was featured at Carifesta in Barbados, the recently concluded Carifesta. Right? Then we had a very well-known series that was filmed here in Nevis. We couldn't say much, and we still can't say much because they have some, what they call them, like non-disclosure clauses.
Right.
Because they said they will take care of their media. But I believe that those episodes filmed here go live on the 5th of October.
Okay.
So Nevis is going to be splashed across the United States and across the world come the 5th of October. Then we made connections with an African-American couple who are filmmakers. Many of us may not know that just last week we wrapped a full-length feature film that was done here.
Really?
And what I liked about that is a number of Nevisians who were involved. Behind the camera, makeup artists, and even a few who acted in the film. And those same people who brought in close to $1 million worth of equipment have left everything in Nevis. They have gone back to America, and they will be back, I believe, in the next week to start a second film that will be done here.
Sweet.
We also have some options that we hope that we can take advantage of later in the year. So, for Little Island, I believe we're getting some tremendously positive attention to the point now where I think one of the films that was done here by MSR called The Island. The Island. That film, in fact, if you forgive me, because I believe I had something on my phone, if I can find it, but that film is going to be featured at NEPAC in an island-wide premiere. I'm going to tell you I have it here. Sunday, September 28th, 6:30 at NEPAC. Only $10. Made in Nevis movie. We now have, if you will, a catalog. As a Calypsonian, I know you have a vast catalog.
Oh, yeah.
But we now have a catalog of films that are made in Nevis. You know, the 9 that were done by MSR, then you have all these other films that are happening, you have these series, and I think that people are really taking notice. And so, yet again, this is an initiative that has started to pay dividends. And I want our people to understand. Mr. Scarborough was recently at the graduation, the 4th graduation ceremony for students who have passed their exams at different levels in Mandarin. And as I sat there as the premier of this island, I reflected that 5 years ago, we took the decision on my initiative to introduce Mandarin. I approached the Taiwanese government, and the Taiwanese government kindly consented, and they sent us a beautiful teacher, excellent, called Miss Chen. Sadly, Miss Chen has now been recalled, so she has to go back, and they're looking for somebody else to send. But at the time, some people again, oh, a Mandarin you're talking about. When I sat there this year and say, little Nevisian boys and girls, speaking Mandarin. Speaking Mandarin. There was a youngster, 8 years old, who had passed the exams and was getting his certificate in Mandarin. Again, it tells you vision in government is important.
Of course.
Having an eye and saying, okay, what can we do that is different, that is innovative? And in fact, you know, there are students who have come over from St. Kitts to learn Mandarin in Nevis. So we need to look at these things and say, listen, not everything we do succeeds, but good ideas that are given an opportunity to contend, at the end of the day, we give them time.
Right.
And so we now have 4 cohorts of graduates at different levels. Some are beginners, some are advanced in terms of Mandarin. And we see what the film industry has become. We only started it in 2020.
Sure.
So it's only been 5 years. So you want to now imagine a Nevis 10, 15, 20 years from now, with some of the youngsters here. When I look at the youngsters here, I look at a youngster, I hope he doesn't mind me calling his name, but a youngster like Tishan Wilkin. And Tishan Wilkin is there and he's running things on the set. Vaughn Anslin, you know, the young girl Nyla Daniel, who's doing makeup. And then you have actors like Esther Brooks, I think. Esther Carries, Esther Brooks.
Yes.
You have my good friend Clayton Huggins. All of these Nevisians are being given an opportunity, locals, to be exposed. And that, I think, is sometimes is not celebrated enough. because these are the types of ideas that advance a country and advance our island.
Great. It sounds very good. Now, you recently, sticking with tourism, you recently returned from a trip to Martha's Vineyard.
Yes.
Where Nevis was once again marketed to the rich and famous. So share your experience on that trip with our listeners and viewers.
Why, Mr. Scarborough, I regret to say that I became very ill.
I heard.
And so such a beautiful event. And I was only able to spend a short period because I said, man, I have never seen such food. And they had one of the top chefs in America who catered that event for us. And the only thing I had was a little water because I was not feeling well at all. So I went, I attended, I took some pictures, I gave a speech and answered some questions, and then unfortunately I had to leave.
Okay.
But I will tell you, the team was represented by Fayon Jones and by Shalicia Glassford. We had our U.S., our ambassador for diversity, Mrs. Candy Carter, and we put on a tremendous show there. I want to thank Terry and Bill Borden. And you know, it's interesting how things come together. We went to Tenerife as we tried to get more African Americans to come to Nevis. We went to Tenerife, which is an island off Spain, with a group. We took a band, and the band mashed up the place. I mean, these guys did a wonderful job. I think is what they call the band, Ivy.
Yeah.
They did a wonderful job. And I had an opportunity to speak to that group. One of the gentlemen, all African Americans, one of them said to me, how does it feel being in the company of 400 millionaires? And I said, that's interesting. Wealthy African Americans.
Yes.
We gave away a trip to Four Seasons at that event in Tenerife. The winners of that trip were Mr. and Mrs. Bill Borden. And when they came eventually on the trip to Nevis, they brought several other couples with them. They invited me for a drink at Four Seasons. And right there in the lobby bar, we sat, 10 of us or so, and we chatted and we laughed. And I said to them, they said to me that they just finished a beautiful home in Martha's Vineyard. And I said to them, I want Nevis and Martha's Vineyard to develop a relationship. It was right there that the wife said, Terry, would you be willing to host something at our home? We are prepared to make our home available to Nevis. And that's where the idea came and germinated. Just a matter of months later, we were hosting this event. And let me tell you, man, the celebrities came out.
I know.
You know, actresses, stars of film, and well, we didn't have any president there. I don't know if Obama was in the neighborhood, but he didn't come. But next time, because I'm told that even now they're still saying that this was one of the best events in Martha's Vineyard for the summer. And you know, it's a time when people they have so many events to go to, but they came out, and I want to publicly thank Bill and Terry. They were amazing hosts, and they have a beautiful home, and we had a beautiful event. And so that then led to a significant level of press coverage, Martha's Vineyard, and national coverage about Nevis. And that is the perfect demographic, because the people in Martha's Vineyard, let me say, people go to Martha's Vineyard, aren't just wealthy people. They're some of the richest Americans. So when you see African Americans there, those fellas are in the 1%. The 1%. So that is the clientele that Nevis has been trying to attract. And I believe that things are going well. We gave away 2 trips in Martha's Vineyard. And I know that when they come, they will be feted and hosted, and they will enjoy Nevisian hospitality. As a matter of fact, let me just add quickly that the person who started talk television, long before Oprah, was a lady called Rolanda Watts. And Rolanda came to Nevis on what she called a solo trip. And she has only 2 or 3 days ago put out a beautiful podcast, and featuring Nevis and saying to her listeners, this is a place to go to. You can't afford that kind. Oh no, you can't afford that. You just can't afford it.
Honorable, the Nevis Tourism Authorities just over a couple of months ago hired VIP Experience Director, I think, in the person of Miss Shalicia Glassford.
Yes.
And just over 2 weeks ago, a new CEO was appointed as head of the NTA. And during your last press conference, you mentioned that former CEO, Mr. Devon Liebert, was attached to NASPA.
Yes.
Specifically to deal with maybe cruise lines and air travel.
Yes.
It seems to me that a major effort is being made to strengthen Nevis tourism brand, both at home and abroad. Am I right with my observation?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, the signs are there. The work that we're doing is evident. Devon, I think, has years of experience, and I feel that Devon can do a tremendous job helping us to bring more high-end, smaller cruise passengers and also help us with airlift. We can't talk about the airport without starting to develop the relationships with the airlines. And Devon, I think, is well positioned to assist us there. He's attached to NASPA. I have every confidence that he'll do a great job. And then, of course, in terms of the NTA itself, we went through a process. We advertised and went through a process. And Miss Andia Raveri, I hope I get her surname correct. It's a tough French name for me. But she was selected after a very lengthy process to lead the NTA for the next few years. And, of course, Shalicia Glassford, who's well known to us. She was a staple at the Park Hyatt and, in fact, had worked at the Park Hyatt in Australia. That she's now back home. She's very passionate about tourism. She spoke with me and I said, listen, we can't allow this type of passion from a local go someplace else. We have to find room in Nevis for Nevisians to grow and Nevisians to do well. And she has fit right in. She's going to deal with meetings, incentives, events and groups, and certainly the VIP experience. And so she has been doing extremely well in the short time she's been there, along, of course, with our other staff who are there, seasoned professionals. And so we are strengthening the team. As a matter of fact, I will tell you that in the next week or so, we will start some construction. We are completely modernizing the office space that is at the NTA. You know, that building is an old building.
Yes.
It was last refurbished many, many years ago, I think nearly 20 years ago. And so we will be modernizing it. We have engaged to have that done in the next, I would say, starting in about a week from now. And the idea is to create a more professional environment for our staff. We are seeking to professionalize what we do. And we have hired a director of digital marketing, because we recognize, for example, that a lot of marketing now is being done. People want something pop up on their phone.
Right.
I learned, for example, listening to the experts, Mr. Scarborough, that you can know when you do an ad online, you can decide who will see your ad. What I mean by that is, if there is an area in New Jersey or an area in New York that is an affluent area, you could geotag so that those households in a certain zip code are who get your ad. And that is a level that people have gone to now in terms of marketing, pinpoint marketing. Nevis doesn't have the budget to have a scattershot approach. So I've said to the team, listen, let us focus on our core markets: New York, New Jersey, Boston, Washington, D.C., core markets. Let us try to develop a market in Atlanta. Let us look at Canada. Canadians now, because of difficulties with the United States, they're looking for options.
Right.
They want to go elsewhere. Why not Nevis? And so we are trying to do some innovative things. We had a great event in New York this year as we launched our new branding. We had a great event in Martha's Vineyard. And we are planning another big event, which we hope will be in Atlanta, because, of course, there's a direct flight from Atlanta to St. Kitts. So we have a very, very clear strategy in terms of what we're doing. And the important part of that is that African-American piece. Because prior to Candy Carter coming on board, we never really had an inroad into the African-American market. We now do. And so we have done things, for example, with the NFL Wives, where wives of NFL players have come here, have been accommodated by us. And so we are definitely working towards our plan. And I think the numbers that we spoke about earlier showing that that plan is working.
It is working, indeed. Folks, you're listening to Government at Work. My guest this evening is Premier the Honorable Mark A.G. Brantley. We shall take a short break, and when we return, we shall continue here with our discussions on Government at Work.
So right, St. Thomas is right, St. James is put together and build your life.
Welcome back. Honorable, I want to focus your attention now on the elephant in the room, so to speak. The proposed development of the Southeast lands, which seems to be giving the opposition party here in Nevis sleepless nights and frankly further exposing their opposition to any development here on the island of Nevis. We would have seen and heard of the opposition to the proposed upgrade to the Vance W. Amry International Airport, which is set to commence shortly. We would have seen and heard of the opposition to the development of our geothermal energy, and now we are seeing and hearing of the very loud opposition to what will clearly be a game changer for the island and people of Nevis. Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of any opposition anywhere in the world so against the development of their own country?
Well, they're against development because it's happening on the CCM. That's really all that this is.
Yes.
And the opposition feels that if a significant project like this were to come to Nevis on the CCM, that will be a further nail in their coffin, politically. So that is really what this is all about. And I think that Nevisians, who are incredibly sensible people, understand that all this noise that is being made is really noise that is associated with politics. Because so many lies have been told by the opposition in relation to this. The opposition we have in Nevis now is no longer waiting to get information. They no longer wait for the government to indicate what the position is and then they respond. They just simply make it up. That's all they do. Every morning they get up, they make up something. And then they have people stirred up. And then when the truth comes out, there's no apology. They simply move on to the new story that they make up.
True.
I saw that the Commonwealth is calling for fiction writers. They have a competition, Commonwealth. And I put it on my Facebook page. I said the opposition could win this easily. Easily. Because that is all they do. They make things up and they try to get people into a panic and hysteria. And so I am saying to them, let us just move away from all that nonsense and that noise and let's focus on development.
True.
What do we want for Nevis? What do we want for our young people? What future do we see for them in this country? I recall years ago, I was much younger, but when Four Seasons came, there was some noise in some quarters. Some say they want to continue to go down there to catch crab, and they want to go and pick coconut. Dr. Simeon Daniel, who I think was a visionary, our national hero, Dr. Daniel pushed through. 30 years later, which of us can with any legitimacy argue that the Four Seasons has not been a game changer for Nevis? To provide an investment where anywhere from 600 to 1,000 people are working. Families can count on a regular paycheck. I heard somebody say Four Seasons gave Nevisians a paycheck. And I need people to understand that the spill-offs from a development like Four Seasons went to the fishermen, it went to the taxi drivers, it went to the farmers, it went to the contractors. So many people can say they made $1 at Four Seasons.
True.
So imagine Four Seasons times 3 in terms of scale and what we can do. We now will be saying to Nevisians in New York, man, come home. Things here for you to do. Fellows who have expertise in air conditioning, fellows who have expertise in landscaping, fellows who are managers and have expertise in hospitality. Come home, there's work here for you to do. Accountants, business people. An environment where you can be saying to the business people and business-minded entrepreneurs in Nevis, listen, go into that area and set up, because they need food, they need restaurants, they need supermarkets, they need services.
True.
Accounting services, managerial services, pest control. I mean, you imagine, just imagine it. And that's why I tell people that this is not something that is out of the blue and we have no yardstick. Think about what Four Seasons has done to Nevis. Think about the contribution it has made. And you know, King, I hear a lot of things being said. I was on a program with my brother Banky and Yassan some nights ago, and you know, the comments were it's a tough crowd, let me just put it that way, you know, a crowd that is largely opposition. And the comments were quite tough. But I am the premier of all of Nevis, not some. And wherever I'm invited to go and speak, I will go. It's as simple as that. I don't care what the agenda may be, I will go. And I knew that Banky and Yassan, we would have a conversation because we respect each other. We may not agree on everything, but we respect each other. But when the conversation was coming to an end, I said to Banky, I said, what if I were to tell you now that the three of us should go down to Four Seasons and have a beer at the bar? Can we? And he said, sure, but we'll have to go through the guard at the gate and tell him where we come for and all of that. And I said, oh? Because the noise that you're hearing in the country about, oh, there's going to be a gated community. And I am here to set in visions. There are several gated communities in Nevis already.
Of course. Of course.
Existing. No problem. If you are going into Four Seasons, you and I can't just drive up into Four Seasons where the villas are.
Nope.
And if you go into Four Seasons Hotel, which people go in every day to work and deliver goods and do whatever they do.
You got to state your business.
But you have to state your business.
Right.
People are acting brand new. As if these things are so bizarre and they've never heard of these things. And trying to make politics out of things that already exist on the island of Nevis.
True.
In fact, Four Seasons has a nice little phrase that I love. Fully committed. When Four Seasons is full, they actually put out a notice and say they can't accommodate anybody from the outside.
True, true.
And we have existed here for 30 years with that.
Of course.
Nobody's making any noise because we understand this is economic advancement, this is jobs, this is business.
Right.
All of a sudden, oh, they're going to get community and you can't go in there. Where is that coming from? So I have been trying to reset that narrative and say to our people, listen, there's some out there who are singing for their supper. In fact, some don't eat their supper and telling others to sing for theirs. But I am just urging the visions, listen, let us let good sense prevail. And let us look at development when it comes and make the determination, is this the kind of development we want and is this good for us? All this other foolish noise, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but the foolish noise about, you know, people can't go in the ocean and fishermen can't. I hear some fella say, for 10 miles out in the sea, Nevisions can't go. I say, well, what is this I'm hearing here? 10 miles, he said, out in the ocean, Nevisions can't go. And you have to tell people simple things that you thought were obvious. That the oceans and the beaches belong to the people of Nevis by law.
Of course.
And you think these things are obvious, but, you know, just today I saw some discussion and this fellow with some bad word and thing on social media say he can't support nobody coming into Nevis to create their own country. And I said, where people get this foolishness from? But the opposition has been out there, and the thing about it, I was unwell, and in fact, even now I still have a bit of a hoarseness. But I will tell you that the opposition had about 3 weeks, you know, when they were on the track alone.
I remember.
And you know they say when the one horse on the track, it looks very fast. They were on the track and they were spreading as much propaganda and as much negativity as they could manage. I made one speech on the 25th of August. And since then they've been scrambling and the stories keep changing every day.
Every day.
So that is really what's been happening. And the problem I have in Nevis is that we in the main are not holding them accountable. We are not saying, hey, last week you told us this. This week you come now and you're saying something different. You say you're going to have a march against the selling of lands. Well, who's going to lead the march? Who's going to lead the march? Because
that's the land.
Because when the facts come out, you realize that the leaders are misleaders. So I am waiting because I want some photos from the march, you know. But it's going to be fun here. Because Culturama really has started. Them fellas say they start the promotion for Culturama early. 52 is going to come early. Because when I heard there's a march, I say, well, I am hopeful that some people call in sick. Who's going to lead the march? Because if you're marching against people selling their land, you should not have sold any.
Exactly.
So we'll wait and see.
Honorable, I want to move now to the area of the proposed development itself, because the ANP, which is what I call them now, the anti-Nevis party, has taken to the airwaves and the various social media houses without knowing what the proposals entails, and has been spewing a whole lot of misinformation.
Yes.
It is for me, it is a PR plan designed purely for political purposes. So let's address some of those misinformation that have been placed in the public domain, and then we shall look at the positives that will come to this island once this proposal becomes a reality. Now, as my good friend Weber would say, just walk with me. Now, the ANP has putting out some misinformation that the Indian castle lands and the racetrack forms part of the lands that are in these proposals.
That is false.
Right.
That is false.
The ANP has circled a map which shows all the lands from Bath Village going all the way to Butlers, that those lands are proposed as part of the development as well.
Well, that was their first map. They put out a second map after that, which shows a different thing. But I will tell you again, that is false.
Okay, great. Now, the ANP wants the world to believe that a 12-mile seabed is all part of the development, so Nevisians won't be able to fish or bathe in that area. Any truth to that?
That is false. And I will add that what is happening is they do not even understand what a seabed lease is about.
Right.
I will go on record to say that seabed leases already exist. Tamarind Cove, the project that was proposed there by the Sea Bridge, they have a seabed lease.
Right.
Christoph Harbour has a seabed lease. The reason Port Zante has a seabed lease, the reason for the seabed lease is because you will be embedding infrastructure into the seabed.
Right.
Seabed has nothing to do with fishing and rights to swim and all of that. But again, just efforts to mislead. Right?
Right. Now, and finally, the ANP wants the world to believe that if anyone refuses to sell their land to the developers, their land will then be surrounded by the proposed development, and therefore will not be able to do anything with their lands after that. Is there any truth to that?
Well, I can't see how that can be true, because again, by law, every bit of land must have access, must have, a way to get to it. So all of these are just really tactics to try and scare people. But you said something at the start, which was that they do not know what the proposal is. And I would have thought that a responsible opposition would say to government, can we sit and hear what this proposal is all about? But instead of that, they just make up stories. So I saw a statement from the leader of NRP. And she said, people don't know, so people will come up with their own story. And I said, well, what kind of nonsense is this? You don't know, so you come up with your own story. This is not kindergarten playtime, this is governance. This is a country that we're running.
Right.
If you don't know, then you seek out the information.
Right.
When you have the information, then you comment on the information.
True.
But you can't just go down the road every morning, make up a new story, and then that's the story for the day. By tomorrow, when you find out that is not true, you just shift and you give a new story. And that, I find, is a difficulty, and it makes meaningful debate in the country difficult. Right? One of the things I'm surprised you didn't mention, the first big story was that the government is selling out all the lands.
Yes. That is true.
Only to find out that the truth is that the lands that the government owned over there, 238 acres, under NRP was swapped to National Bank for debt. In the words of Denzel Douglas, those lands have gone poof. So you have again, because the lands in that area, I was saying, is over 200 owners. It's actually over 400, I'm told, owners of lands in that general area. So if private folks have land and private people are deciding to sell or not to sell, that is their right. And the irony is, it's the same right that leaders in the NRP exercise. So how is it they have the right? Right? I was doing some math in my head, and based on what I gathered, just 3 of them together sold about 100 acres.
Wow.
So I'm looking at it and I'm saying, well, how it is that you could be so bold-faced, that you have exercised your right, which you have. God bless them. Whatever millions they've made, I'm happy so many Nevisians are becoming millionaires. But But you have exercised your right. But now you're telling divisions, march with me against others exercising the same right that I have already exercised. And therein, I think, lies the hypocrisy and the difficulty of what it is that some are proposing. Man, let us move beyond that. We all know these lands. These lands have been sitting down for the last 100 years. There's nothing over there. No water, no electricity, no road. And therefore, development has not come. I hear all kind of people spinning, oh, Nevisians should get together. But Nevisians have always known the lands have been there.
Of course.
Right? So one person said to me that their lands have been on the market for 30 years. 30 years. And in that time, this is the first time they've had a serious offer. Because the people have come. Now, let us therefore move from all the hysteria and let us discuss the project.
Right.
Let us determine whether or not having a project which I've described as multiple 4 seasons, right? They're talking about a minimum of at least 3, they said, residential communities, which 4 seasons is.
Yes.
Anchored with a resort, but residences.
Right.
That is what they're proposing. And they're saying they want to have the top brands in the world inside this area. So I'm saying, will that be good for Nevis?
Of course.
We're doing an airport. Will that see traffic coming into that airport, private jets coming in there?
Of course.
Because remember, these people will not have an airport. So their passengers will have to be coming through the Van Samre International.
True.
Right there you have a ready-made market.
True.
But when they come in there, the taximen, who are going to take them over to that area? You see what I'm saying? So we now start to think. Because it means that our local fellows here can have a very high-end limousine service.
True.
Right? Because this is the kind of clientele that they'll be servicing. Right? It boosts everybody. You know? So I am just saying, listen, I don't know at the end of the day, because we will have some consultations, and certainly our people are entitled to have their concerns met, responded to in a sensible way. But I'm just saying, let us move away. And you commented on last night, that's a typical example. Rage and vitriol and anger. To what end? Why are you going to be upset that somebody's selling their land?
They were sent.
Well, but even though they were sent, I mean, you know, even if you're a messenger, man, be a sensible messenger.
I wanted to remind you when you were speaking of 4 Seasons earlier. I don't know if you recall, when 4 Seasons was actually throwing rocks to protect their property.
Oh, yes.
The same persons went down there to demonstrate.
Of course, the same opposition.
Same opposition went to demonstrate.
Went to demonstrate, and that is what they do.
Yes. But let me ask you another question. The Amman Hotel that was supposed to come in that
Indian Castle.
area,
Indian Castle.
on the Indian Castle lands.
Yes.
Okay, but those are the same lands they're complaining that the government is selling, which is not true. But they were prepared to sell it.
In fact, the deal with Amman was not even a sale. The lands were going to be transferred.
Wow.
And the government would take a stake. That was the deal. But the Amman lands, but even these South Coast lands, remember they had this far-fetched plan to do the largest oil, what do you call it, storage facility.
I remember.
Right? So you could imagine, for as far as you can look, would have been these oil tanks.
I remember.
And the
that.
environmental dangers that would cause for us in a zone that's prone to hurricane and sea blast and all of that. That is what their plan was.
I remember that.
How were they going to do it over there? The lands are private lands. Would they not have asked people to sell their lands?
No, they might have acquired all.
Oh. So you're telling me, therefore, that they would have put these tanks in the air? It have to go on land.
Of course.
And if it went on land, you're back to where you are now. Foreign investors coming in and having to engage with landowners to purchase their land. Right. They wanted to do an oil storage facility to pollute our environment. And we are saying that there's an opportunity now to do a development that is high-end, that is residential, that will bring people into the country, and that is similar to something we already have, which is the 4 Seasons. Right? Yeah. So that is the difference in terms of vision. Right? And I will just add that I've been in government, took over government in 2013 under the leadership of Van Samre as Premier. I became Premier in 2017. I got a second term by the good people of Nevis in 2022. We have never seen one scrap of paper about any oil storage facility over there. So whoever the proposal was made to, when they left office, they carried home with them. Never found it.
Never found it.
Never found it. So I don't know whether or not it was an Nancy story or whether there was any truth to it. But I'm just saying to Nevisians, that is the difference, because that was their plan for that area.
Yeah.
Oil storage, I say, one of the largest in the Caribbean. So,
Honorable, last week I had the Minister of Infrastructural Development here in Nevis, the Honorable Spencer Brandt,
Yes.
on this program, and we looked at a number of positives that could come from this proposed development if or when it becomes a reality. Believe me, many Nevisians, including me, who knows what the lands in the south are like, can't wait to see this project becomes a reality. I know that your CCM-led administration will be holding a number of town hall meetings in not too distant future to discuss the details of these proposals, but I want to give you the opportunity this evening to speak to some of the many positives you have started already that could come from this development should it become a reality. The nation is listening, so according to Pupo Wheeler, take it away.
well, the thing for me firstly is jobs. You cannot grow your economy without growing jobs. And our young people need work. Our professionals need work. We need to create a Nevis where when our young people go away to study, they're coming home because the opportunity is here. We need to create a Nevis where members in the diaspora can come home. You can only do that with jobs. You can only do that with opportunity. The expansion of local businesses, restaurants, various businesses who now have an opportunity with a larger base of consumers to do business with these folks, to have them as their consumers. You imagine, for example, with people now living here on that area of the island, having a villa there, having a home there, coming and being on the beach, being at Sunshines, being at Turtle Time, being at Chills, being down at Randy Lime or weekends. The reality is that you now open up more consumption in the country. You then have a situation where an undeveloped area of Nevis is now being developed. So the roads, the water, the electricity, the infrastructure, all of that going in at no cost to the government, which is very important.
Yep.
No cost to the government. You have the expansion of our economy and GDP. The Four Seasons would have taken us from where we were several percentage points upwards. And since that, for 30 years, we have had what I call incremental growth. We need explosive growth. We need growth that takes us to the next level. My ambition, which I know is bold, but it's to make Nevis the best place in the world to live and work and raise your family. Right? I have been to Cayman Islands. I've been to Bermuda. I have seen the affluence in some of these islands, and I say, why can't that be in Nevis? Why can't the same thing happen in Nevis? Incidentally, Cayman has a zone as well.
Right.
But why can't we achieve these things right here on the little island of Nevis? We can with the right vision and the right partners. So I see economic expansion. One of the things about the sustainable zone that many have not paid attention to is that the difference that has been introduced with this legislation is that it has to be sustainable. So it's based on the principles of sustainability. Water, they have to generate their own. Electricity, up to 70% has to be renewable. Waste management, all of these become their responsibilities. Their buildings have to be climate resilient. All of this has been built in. And these developers are telling us, listen, they want green areas, they want to create the kind of environment. I believe that Nevisians, if they ultimately can see the vision, if they can see what is anticipated, then I think the conversation will change. And that is why where I am now is I'm saying the politics will play. You can't avoid that. But let us now start to get information. So I believe the people have gone live on their website, destiny.com. It is up to them, www.destiny.com, because the development is called Destiny. It is up to them, I've said to them, to start to disseminate information. And the government will also engage with the public. So you may find that you're hearing different voices. But the bottom line is that I have a responsibility as the head of government and my colleagues to share information, and they have a responsibility to share information. It is not my job to sell the project. It is my job to give information to the public in terms of where we're going, what we're trying to do. And for all of those who have been lamenting for years that nothing big has come, something big is now coming. So what are we going to do?
Now, mention was made, Honorable, that an oversight committee will be put in place to monitor all aspects of this proposed development. Is there a time frame in which the committee has to be named?
No, and in fact the legislation does not mandate a committee. The legislation at section 9, I think it is, says that the Prime Minister for Development on St. Kitts or the Premier for one in Nevis may put in place a monitoring committee. It is my intention to activate such a committee, but I will be consulting with colleagues so that we can determine how best to go about it. And I will tell you now that it is my intention to invite opposing voices to be part of that as well, provided that they bring something to the table, because this is not just a committee for committee's sake. This has to be people with some technical skills, some people with some knowledge about development, perhaps finance, perhaps economics, who can bring value. So I'm looking very carefully at that, but I do intend to make it as broad as possible so that it has a good representation of Nevisians at home and perhaps even some abroad, wherever I can find the expertise. But it doesn't mandate it, so there's no time frame. But I intend that that should be done to create that level of transparency for which this government has been known. So that is my intention. It's just that we are not there yet.
Okay, great. Now, we now know all that has to be done before this project could commence. If this project is given the green light by all involved, when do you anticipate we could see some activity taking place in that area in terms of clearing of lands and possible construction and stuff like that?
Based on what the developers are saying, they're ready to move now. They're ready to move. They have the resources. They have, other investors who are going to come on board with them in terms of people buying into the project. They're saying they're ready to move. So really it will be a function of the necessary approvals. And then I think once that happens, bearing in mind that no zone can be declared without Parliament.
Yes.
So all that we're saying here, we still have to go back to Parliament to pass this in order for this to become a zone. So there's work still ahead of us. But the people are very serious. They say they've spent a significant sum of money already doing research and all of that. And it seems to me that they're ready to rumble.
Okay, great. You did mention on several occasions a number of steps that must be taken by the developers prior to these proposals being approved. Could you one last time outline those steps for our listening and viewing audience so that they could have a proper understanding?
So listeners and viewers who look, you can look to the legislation. I think that the preconditions are set out in section 5. So there has to be an economic impact report from a reputable third-party institution. There has to be a social and environmental impact report. There has to be a plan for your infrastructure, a plan for your water, a plan for your health care, a plan for your electricity, 70% of which has to be renewable. So it sets out some conditions that have to be satisfied. And only when the government is satisfied that these conditions have been met can you be considered as a developer for such a zone. So the legislation itself has built in a number of safeguards or guardrails, as the modern language is, for this kind of development. So they have to satisfy all of those. And then the legislation does not have a requirement in terms of land acreage. So if you have 1 acre of land and you feel you can satisfy those requirements, you can apply to have that 1 acre declared an SSZ. If you have 100 acres, 1,000 acres, 5,000 acres, you can do the same. So the truth of the matter is that while people have been making a lot of noise and saying the legislation encouraging people to sell their land, that is not so. The legislation is not designed for foreigners, it's not designed for locals, it is designed for investors. So whether you're local or foreign, if you're an investor, the legislation is designed to allow you a mechanism. You don't have to choose that mechanism. You can come in and say, well, that is of no interest to me. But for those who want to choose that type of mechanism, it's available through that legislation.
Okay, great. Honorable, you don't have much time left, but could you give us a little update on the geothermal bidding situation?
So the last that I've been advised, and just in fact, this week, the head of NEVLEC, Mr. Gordon, would have advised that the process that we engaged in was we invited bids. Those bids have come. 5 significant companies around the world bid. Those bids have to be evaluated. One was called a technical evaluation. That has been completed. But before we proceed, they had to send that evaluation to the CDB, the Caribbean Development Bank, for them to give what is called a no objection. And after that, there's a second phase, which is now a financial evaluation. So we are still waiting on the no objection from the CDB. But I have been in touch. In fact, I spoke to Daniel Best, the president of the CDB, just yesterday. And Daniel has indicated that the CDB will have their response back in time. The drop dead date for that is September 15th. So they will have it back in time. And then once that is in hand, they then move to that second phase, which is the financial evaluation. I would anticipate that that process should be over very quickly. And then we'll be able to announce the winner of the bid. Okay. Once we announce the winner of the bid, that's where the action starts now, because that's now mobilization and getting things done. Right? In the meantime, I can say that we have been making efforts to get the lands that we need in the area and to settle up with the landowners. We've had some negotiations with them, and we're making efforts to get ready in terms of water, because they're going to need a significant amount of water during drilling. And just we're going to start now the public awareness, so that people understand what's going to happen. I can say to the residents of Hamilton that you have my apologies, but based on what I'm told, during the drilling phase, there will be some noise. Okay. But that drilling phase, we anticipate, will last less than 6 months. So once that is over, then that noise that you'll get from drilling, that disappears. But we anticipate, and I'm hopeful, that 2026, the new year, will see us in full action insofar as that's concerned. So my fingers and my toes are crossed, and I'm optimistic that God will get us there. We've been talking about this for a long time, but I think we are finally in a striking distance.
Okay, great. Any word on the fundraising initiative for the plant itself?
We have not yet gone out on that, because we're going to send out the necessary invitations on that. That has not yet happened. Okay. But I can tell you that we have been agitating for additional funds, and the Green Climate Fund has been very responsive. They see this project as a major project for them, and we are hopeful that we'll have some good news to come back to in terms of just additional funding. Because remember, we will have to upgrade our distribution network. Yes. Remember, we have to run that cable to St. Kitts to provide St. Kitts with power. Yes. So there's a number of infrastructural works that are still necessary, and St. Kitts too will have to upgrade their grid. So there's a lot of work still to be done, and that work comes at a cost. Okay. So we will have to work through that, but we're doing it incrementally. So we have the drilling, production well drilling, that is well now on the way in terms of selecting a driller. And then when we start that process, we're going to go out now for the plant. That's going to be a 30 megawatt facility. Right. And then we now start to add on as we go. Putting in that infrastructure, getting that line over to St. Kitts so that our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts can also benefit from clean, cheap energy.
Okay, great. Finally, any further update on the airport development?
Airport development, we had some delays in the land acquisition, but I'm very pleased to say that we're moving forward. The most significant piece of land that we needed, which is where the extension is going to go, we have finalized that purchase. I believe that they've had some heavy equipment already moving over there. They're doing some test pits, some soil testing and all that. A lot of work has been happening, and we continue to pay landowners through that facility with National Bank, and we anticipate that we should have a groundbreaking soon. I had hoped, and I said to the team, that I would have loved to have had that groundbreaking on September 19th, our Independence Day, but that is not going to be possible. So we are looking realistically now at sometime later this year, once we get the opportunity to announce, because once we start to go, the idea is to go full throttle. Full throttle. This project is going to be an 18-month to 24-month project. And so we want to go full throttle. And if we can do that, it means that by Christmas of 2027, we should have a brand spanking new airport.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Honorable, I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us this evening. It's always a pleasure having you here. It's always, I am told that my numbers always increase once you're here. So I am always happy to have you here. Your final words for our listening and viewing audience.
Just to say thank you. I think it's a privilege to serve the people of Nevis. I know that not everybody in Nevis supports me. I don't want to be blasphemous, but not everybody supported a perfect man, Jesus.
That's true.
So I expect that there will be opposition. I am just calling on the opposition to put the country above their personal feelings. There's too much ill will, too much venom, too much vitriol. We see what ill will, venom, and vitriol can do, because when people get to that point, they take other steps,
Right.
which I don't think this country needs or this country wants. So back away from all the vitriol. Let us debate ideas. Let us engage in a way that really demonstrates that we are an educated and mature people. That is all that I'm asking. And at the end of the day, whenever an election comes, the people will vote.
Of course.
And the people have shown consistently that they prefer the concerned citizens movement.
Of
So
course.
I am not even worried about that. I'm in work mode now. I'm in governance mode. I'm in development mode.
Right.
And I'm trying to move Nevis forward. So I call on the visions at home and abroad who are well-meaning, well-intentioned, who want the best for this country. Come on board with your ideas. Come on board with your investment. Give us your time and your energy, and let us build Nevis together.
And that's a good note to end this program on this evening, folks. We have come to the end of another edition of our Government at Work program. Join us again next week when we shall do it all over again. Do enjoy the rest of the evening's programming and have a pleasant night's rest. Good night.